but his address was not part of an editorial in any newspaper. In fact, the Standard News carried an extensive story on his address, and the title of the story was "Oil Wealth Only Benefiting PPP Elite and Friends and Family, Opposition Leader." Now, I believe that for fairness' sake, that if you subject any address to scrutiny, then you must do so in an even-handed way, because it's important that we do this in free societies. It's a healthy tendency and a healthy thing in any free, independent society where the media is also independent. But I believe that the reflection of the messages on New Year by the leader of the opposition and the president, and the way they were treated, shows often the bias in how people hold the government in a particular manner, in a very different. The standards used to assess the government are very different than those of the opposition, and on policy issues. So let me quickly go through a few things here. Oil wealth only benefiting PPP, civic, elite, and friends and family. That's the address of the leader of the opposition. If you ask the leader of the opposition on the scholarship program of the last government, you'd find that less than 1,000 persons got scholarships, and many were members of the PNC, the ministers, and their families. Today, over 22,000 Guyanese are studying on scholarship from this government. So clearly we've demonstrated factually that the only party that when it is in power that gives benefits only to those around themselves. You remember the infamous statement from Valda Lawrence saying that only members of our party should get jobs in a particular sector. And she was recorded saying this. So that's clear. Scholarships for cronies of APNU, members, their friends and family. Under the PPP, scholarships for practically everyone. We've made it clear that if you can get on the gold scholarship, anyone can apply. If you can get on the program, the government will fund it. So it's not designed for a few people. Secondly, the SLED grant program. Who were the beneficiaries under APNU? Maximum 100 and maybe 50 persons per year. And what happened? They gave it mainly to known PNC activists or members of parliament. Vincent Henry, I think Vincent Henry or the son from Region 9, he got nearly $150 million to distribute through the SLED program in that region. The Figueres got, Christopher Jones got a SLED grant. Under this government, not a single minister or member of parliament has gotten a grant. We reformed the SLED program. Now you have probably close to 10,000 people in the last 3 years who have gotten grants from this government across the country. If you look at Linden, you just look at the imagery, and you would see in every community. In Linden, probably over 1,000, I don't have the numbers now, persons got a grant, all Afro-Guyanese. In fact, they were saying in Linden that they couldn't use the race argument. So they're saying, oh, we're only giving to PPP supporters because they couldn't use the race argument, which they often use. But the fact of the matter is that only friends and families and PNC activists got grants under the SLED program and under the PPP government. The example is that thousands of others, unconnected with the party. So that is, if you wanted to fact check a New Year's address, as Stabrook News purported to do, then they should have done it in an even-handed way. The third area, healthcare. So who are the beneficiaries? Under APNU, ministers, they launched a scheme where ministers had a private healthcare arrangement where the government paid not 50% but 100% of the premium for them to take themselves and their families abroad for healthcare. That was discontinued by this government. So under healthcare, it was friends and family under APNU. In terms of land distribution, if you look at the few house lots that were given out, very few after the no confidence motion that went to ordinary people, but if you look at land distribution. So right in this office of the president, you had 4 persons in this office who got large tracts of land, literally thousands of acres of land, who were working here in different places, in Berbice and Dalawala Creek, in the Essequibo River, at Lilendal, right from this office here. 4 persons. Lowenfield. I already went through the list that Jordan possibly illegally transferred to people. If you look down the list, you would see list of PNC members and their families. Amanza Walton and two other members of our family got land in Linden when ordinary people didn't get it. The Figueres, Pattersons, etc. So, again, who was managing for friends and family? Under the PPP, we've done 30,000 house lots. We've allocated, we're now saying if you have applied before 2019, even if you applied under APNU, you're eligible for distribution. Not you have to go there with like a party card, or you have to be connected. Anyone who has applied before 2019 now would be eligible to get a scholarship. So if you wanted to fact check, you could easily fact check these issues. I can go down a long list of issues and contrast the behavior under APNU versus now. And you will see that the only time they manage for friends and family was under the APNU period. Cathy Hughes, minister, awarding contracts to herself in her own ministry. Patterson, the Ministry of Housing, awarding contracts to her husband in that ministry. The other Patterson, the one who is charged now, when he contract to supply scale to their advisor, their political advisor, to supply scales. The scales were never delivered. He's charged for it now. tens of millions of dollars. So we can easily fact check these issues. And then if we were to do that, you would find that the New Year address of the leader of the opposition was all talk. It was just rhetoric again. So Norton says, because of an incompetent government and that the oil wealth is only benefiting PPP elite, friends and family, he cannot wish the people of this country a prosperous new year. Now this is like the Grinch appearing here. He doesn't even want to wish the people a prosperous new year. For his benefit, if you go around the country, there are tens of thousands of Guyanese who are making progress. They're getting more jobs, they're getting more income, they're owning a house lot, they're building a home, many are have started a business. A lot more people are in the oil and gas industry working directly or indirectly for that sector. You have 1,500 Guyanese companies now that are benefiting from the Local Content Act. They are now providing services. Norton doesn't know this because he is in a mood where he speaks only to the cabal, and they live in misery among themselves because they can't be generous to others, including their own supporters, people who are diehard supporters who are making progress. They're trying to pull them down, trying to get them not to benefit from the prosperity that is taking place in so many parts of our country, so that they can argue at election time that people didn't make progress. He's the only one. I've already outlined here about oil and gas revenue. And that this year alone, in fact last year alone, that's almost $70 billion of the $200 billion that came into the budget as oil revenue was spent only on 4 categories of people: the public servants, children, the pensioners and those receiving public assistance, and the part-time workers. But when you look at the numbers, you're talking about over 350,000 people, because we have over 200,000 children, you have 74,000 pensioners, you have 54,000 public servants, and we had 15,000 or so people who benefited from the part-time job. 350,000 people saw some increase, they got some benefit, direct benefit from the oil and gas resources. And that's 70 billion of the 200 billion that we got from oil revenue in the budget. Forget everything else. The 6.5% growth or increase in salary cost $7.9 billion, but I'll come to that in a moment. So if we're fact-checking, we should also fact-check that APNU says that they're the only one who has a development plan here. Now, how many weeks have I pointed this out here? That APNU has no development plan that they can point to. You ask them tomorrow, say, can you give us your development strategy for any sector? And they would say things like, oh, we will tell you by 2025. They even at a benign conference that they had in Washington that was arranged for them only for the like-minded people, all anti-PPP, all haters of the PPP. When asked about their plans, they couldn't present their plans. When asked about discrimination, they couldn't present discrimination to people who were sympathetic to them, much less when they're faced with a more rigorous analysis. And so, Starbuck News, if they wanted to fact-check this, could have fact-checked easily who has a plan for any sector in the economy. Ours are clear. You look at our manifesto. Our manifesto outlined what we wanted to do. And you can see evidence of us doing it, almost accomplishing all of what we promised in 2020. We have several documents now in the public domain that outline in every sector what we intend to achieve in the long run and how we're going about through projects and programs and policies now in budgets and at various fora to achieve those. We've laid those out already. You could easily fact check again. This is not something in the realm of fantasy. It is an easy thing to do. But he keeps repeating the lies. He doesn't get fact checked. And he gets a newspaper article and a great headline. But the President Ali gets fact checked, more of the same. Not that he's saying lies. Oh, we're talking the same thing over and over again. But I'll come to that in a moment too. I will deal with the cost of living issue later, but maybe I should deal with it now, since it's part of his New Year Day address. Norton, let's fact check again this issue. So, if you look around the world and you look at the numbers, our inflation rate for 2023 is 1.9%. The average around the world will be between 4 to 5%. Now, we don't reinvent laws of economics. And these are these would be published by the international organizations. So, in any part of the world, you have to assess how the government has been able to address a phenomenon which is natural, particularly in times of escalating prices, global uncertainties coming out of the pandemic. There are real reasons for price movement. Here in Guyana, we have an economy that is expanding, so there's a natural tendency for prices to go up. But you have to assess the competence of a government in terms of how they have been addressing this issue comparatively with others. It's not in a vacuum. It's not in abstract. Because Norton can't say, or the APNU, that there would be no inflation in the world, because then they would be creating new laws. They do it all the time. Laws of economics. The low guy, he does that. But I'll deal with that in a moment. So I've outlined here how the pressures on inflation and how we have tackled that, how we have tried to mitigate those. You could easily fact check this. So these are all issues in Norton's New Year Day message to the people of this country. It was full of lies, half-truths, racism, divisive statements. It was it showed that either Norton, the people who prepared this for him, don't understand what is going on around the world, or they intend to mislead the people of this country. Can you imagine them saying something like this? Yet, according to Norton, Guyana ranks among the worst on a range of human development or quality of life indicators, as it's registered among the worst countries in which we live in terms of maternal and infant death, life expectancy, child poverty, food security, youth unemployment, and educational standards. Everything under the sun he listed here. Youth unemployment, we have one of the lowest in the region and in the world now. Our educational standards rank way above many countries in the world, way above that. The food security in this country, you have a significant part of the world that's water stress and food, and they have suffer food scarcity. In Guyana, we have seen a plummeting of extreme poverty and a reduction of poverty. Our infant and maternal mortality rates have come down. You've heard last year. Last year, there were 10 deaths and a number of people who were saved. So, we this is important for people. So when you look at all of what he's been saying, you will see that his address to the nation was just another one of the typical things that you will expect at every press conference from APNU. I don't know how people can actually believe this sort of thing. I don't know how people, it takes a special human being to hear all these lies over and over again when you can easily fact check them and continue to believe them. So only the hardcore in their camp could ever believe this. But my concern was no scrutiny whatsoever by the media. It's either one of two things, that they believe that he is unimportant as a leader and they don't have a chance of getting into power, so you might as well ignore it. The media might have had that view in mind, this type of news, so why waste our time on fact-checking what he has to say? Because in any case, it's going to happen all the time. They'll continue to lie and push the racism. It's either that, or they have a bias towards the APNU and the lies that they are telling. So in the same stab news, it says, in Guyana, and here's the address is in reality not quite the promise it masquerades as. It is in fact a political speech. So President Ali was saying he's not lofty enough, no real specifics here. That's another quote. No real specifics there, but perhaps the people can file these promises away and see how and if they pan out. Now, a New Year Day address is not to give specifics. It's lofty, and it's not as though the promises we make are new and they're a product of flights of fantasy or whims. We have made these promises over an extended period. We have established the framework as a party a long time ago about where we want to get to as a country, as a society, economy-wise, socially, what are the standards we want to establish in this country. We have been constrained in achieving those as quickly as we wish because of the hand we were dealt with. And it's real, it's not complaining about this hand. When you take over a country where 100% of revenue goes to service debt, you have to work your way, and it takes a while to get out of that situation, as anyone would know. And it took us a while. We have now had more resources, a bit more resources to accelerate that movement. But the goals have been fixed a long time ago. They don't stray every day like APNU. And we hold a consistent line on these matters, and we manage the finances of the country in a manner consistent with that goal. That's why you don't find us every day running after all the advice, the healthy advice that comes from many people, commentators, because I don't believe they comment on an issue in the reality of today. They don't do it in the context of a strategy, nor in terms of what medium term, what is good in the medium term, what is optimal for the country in the medium and long term. They look at it now. Oh, we want more increase now. So we've been doing this. And so that's how we want somebody to analyze us. You can't tell the newspapers how to write, but at least be fair and analyze us in the context of what we've laid out. What we've laid out, because we have outlined our policies. If you don't know of them, that's your problem. But we have, in terms of the media I'm speaking about, but it's available for everyone to see. So that is an important issue for me. Today's press conference of APNU, the leader of the opposition was again there, and I'm told that they dug in on the same issues. So we expect this to happen this year. For a party that comes out and says, oh, on the first day of the year, APNU and AFC is alive and well. They put out a document saying they're alive and well. Now, who does that? As though they had to reassure themselves that they're alive and well, and that this year starts the countdown to the elections. Well, the elections will be held a long way off till November of 2025. And so we have quite a while to go yet, and lots of work to do. But for they had to reassure themselves. So we expect the rhetoric will get stronger. We're gonna get the Kaichor News and the Peeping Toms, etc., saying, oh, the PPP is too and the government is too thin-skinned, must not defend itself, but will not speak about the lies that are told on a daily basis about us, mischaracterizing not just the party, but the government and its programs. So you have a whole campaign now about, oh, we should not be hosting so many press conferences from one time when we're not talking to the press, we should talk less now, etc. I see a whole campaign starting back about that. Of course, we ignore it. So APNU dug down today in their press conference, and I came to the office at 1 o'clock, and my staff said to me, oh, so Mr. Lowe, who was Norton's key man, economic advisor, said that they can give a higher rate of salary increase. They would give a bigger salary increase. And the salary increase could be funded from the interest on the NRF. I think it was Chabrel who was questioning that issue. So how much money was in the NRF for 2022? That is before the formula was applied for the transfer in the budget of next year. So available to the fund managers to invest for the year was about 270 million US dollars. Now 270 million US dollars, this year another sum would be added to that. If you invest, the money now is invested in safe instruments held, that is US government instruments. They get on average about 5% interest per annum. So if you invest that money, 270 million, you will get about 13 million, just over 13 million US dollars per year in interest from the NRF. That is about $2.7 billion. Guess how much the 6.5% cost us? $7.9 billion. But in the interest on the NRF will only give you 2.7 billion. And Elson Lowe said to the media today, they will fund a higher salary increase from the interest alone on the NRF. This is the sort, I could have done this in a couple of minutes before I came here. This is the sort of policy we can expect from APNU AFC. Just a wild rhetoric. So he's saying to the country, oh, we would have paid high increases in salary. He didn't say what increase, but even if they paid the 6.5%, the interest on the NRF could not fund that. So he lied to the country, lied blatantly. But nobody will ever fact check this. They will just move on, and he gets to come back next week again and repeat the same nonsense, or he'll go on a program and talk it. But the fact of the matter is they don't know the purpose of an NRF. It's not to take every cent you earn on interest. We have, in the restructuring of the NRF, we have removed any direct charges on the NRF because that could lead to corruption. All expenditures from oil money must go through Parliament, must be debated in Parliament and appropriated in Parliament. You can't spend off book as would have been allowed under the old NRF, the APNU Natural Resources Fund Act that they passed. We took that away. So it's a transparent process. So when you earn interest on this sum of money you've set aside in the NRF to save for the future, that money, the interest, is then capitalized. You don't take it out to fund recurrent expenditure again. Maybe at some point in time when the NRF is of such a quantum and there is a need because oil prices fluctuate, etc., you may need to do that in the distant future. But we haven't built up an NRF of any magnitude as yet. But he wants to start spending money that we don't even have. That is the philosophical underpinning of the APNU. Why do you think this country ended up with paying every cent of tax dollar we collected to service debt? It's because of the same philosophy in past PNC governments. They spent what we didn't have. And a whole generation, all of us here, suffered because of that, from lost opportunities in your lifetime. Because you had to take care of the past. You couldn't just ignore it, the bad policies of the past. We had to pay back, got some written off, etc. But every cent we paid back in debt that was wasted or unwarranted, it we lost an opportunity for development, either better health care or education for our people. It's the same old philosophy. He said, we're not structured. If you look at our plans, everything is structured. If you ask APNU, they're the unstructured party. They have no structure for their economic thinking or philosophy. And he says something like that. So the next issue of their press conference, he said the high oil price give a windfall revenue of $60 billion to the government, and therefore we have a lot of money, $60 billion. Now, no doubt, I think they go back to see what we have said in the past. So, in 2016, Jagdeo presses government on oil price windfall. So, I spoke about a windfall of about $11 billion at that time. So, what's the difference? The difference at that time was oil prices fell and our import bill shrunk dramatically. Oil prices were like $120 a barrel, and then they came down to under $30 a barrel when APNU came into office, just that period. So that meant our import bill for oil, the money we had to spend to import fuel tank, came down significantly. GPL accumulated on its own over $25 billion saved because of that, the price. So we had money here that we said should be passed on to people in lower electricity prices, etc. That was the windfall I was talking about. He said because of higher oil prices, we had a windfall. Higher oil prices, not lower. So higher oil prices, he means we'll be able to sell the oil that we produce now, and we'll get a windfall. Now that windfall, we could only brought in $1 billion or 200 billion into the budget. I explained that already in 2023. So what did we give up now? What did we give up? So the total fuel import bill for 2023 was just over $1 billion US dollars. So our import bill went up because of higher prices. So we have to spend more now on importing fuel, not less. It went up to over $1 billion. The taxes, if we take only diesel and gasoline, which is about maybe $700-800 million of the $2 billion that we import. If you take the 50% excise tax that we remove, guess how much in taxes we forego? $376 million US dollars, because we remove a 50% excise tax that people were paying in Guyana for diesel and gasoline. And if your import bill is nearly $800 million, then that's a significant sum. It's 700 and something million. So how much does that translate into foregone taxes? $376 million, if you say in billions of Guyana dollars, is 75 billion Guyana dollars of taxes that we gave up in 2023. And guess whose pocket it went back into? People, because of lower diesel when they buy. You don't see it because it's at the pump. If you own a car, you go to the pump now and you buy the gasoline at a rate minus the taxes that were there before. So you don't really see it. But that happened just to cushion the price because of the global increases. So we gave up $75 billion potential in revenue. He talks about a 60 billion windfall that we got, but it's not a windfall to the Treasury. Remember, that is it's mainly because of higher oil prices, but we sell very little oil now on the world market. The converse of it is that we had higher import bill, that's one, and two, we gave up a lot of taxes. So I don't understand what sort of analysis is this. He tries to replicate what we spoke about, but the circumstances are very different. And again, people just would ignore it and they'll probably repeat it. But it's utter nonsense. It's devoid of any scholarship or any economic thinking. I don't know what sort of economic advisor this guy is. Norton would do himself a service to get rid of him or to find somebody else to advise him, because he makes these blunders that are so easily could so easily be disproved based on facts that are available in the public domain. So, as I said before, then they went on to the University of Guyana today at the press conference. So Norton wants free university now. And, they had an opportunity to do lots of things. Remember, they claimed they didn't have oil revenue. But if you look at the taxes they increased, is nearly $80 billion more of tax increases under APNU. Over $80 billion in that 5-year period. So the fact of the matter is that I've seen all this debate about it as though it's new, etc. When we went to the elections, we said we will restore the joint services bonus. We did it. We said we will remove all of the taxes or reduce them that APNU had imposed. We used to say 200. When we actually did a count, because I forgot her name, Ferguson I think it was, asked the question in Parliament, and we actually did a count. They had increased over 400 taxes or fees individually. And if you go to the budget speeches of Jordan and you start doing your tabulation, you go to the annex for each of those speeches, then you will see how many taxes were increased. Apart from the major ones that people are more familiar with, like that, the VAT on water or electricity or data. And that cost us $40 billion, the reduction. But we did it. We promised to remove the corporate tax on education and healthcare. We did that to promote more investments, private investments in healthcare and education. We promised to double old age pension in the 5 years, and we're on track to do that, and that will happen by 2025. We promised to get the children's grant to $50,000 by 2025. APNU had removed the $10,000. It's on track. We are on track to do that. I can go down. It's a long list. It's a long list, and you will see that. We promised within the 5 years to address make university education free. We could have said the first year we do that. We made the other promises, we were time bound. We said within the 5 years, like we did with the children's grant and the others, because we know progressively we'll be able to do it. We said we'll make University of Guyana free, but we started a free scholarship program parallel to that. The president mentioned that we would start off by looking at those who are already paying, and we want to find a mechanism to ensure that they don't have to pay back this sum, but at least we can get some productive use. We're thinking all sorts of things. For example, if you migrated just like that without anything, we may still keep it there. We haven't decided as yet, but if you still live in Guyana, then people should benefit from that because they're serving our country and they're working here, etc. So we're trying to ensure that the write-offs for the debt is done in a manner that is clear, consistent, the rules are established, and evenly applied to everyone. Not people can come into somebody's office and say, I want this done, and another person has another approach to them. That's what we're working on. But that is part of the promise. So effectively, we're already doing free education from now because we are planning to write off what you have to pay. Effectively, we're doing that. But somehow, Norton saying, they're not doing it fast enough. This is the same party that increased the fees at the University of Guyana. People forget that they increased the fees at the University of Guyana. He talks about Burnham and free education. God bless his soul, good Burnham. But you were in government just a few years ago and you increased the fees there. So all of these promises, how they say, and now, political gimmick. It's a political gimmick. Well, we're a political party. We make promises. We made promises to the people. You can't blame us for fulfilling our promises that we made to the electorate of this country by calling it a political gimmick. We don't see it as a gimmick. We made a promise. If you don't want to fulfill your promises, they made a long list of promises in 2015. I don't want to talk about that now, but we can talk about it, none of which have been fulfilled by 2020. None of which. The good life, all sorts of things. Nothing. People lost jobs, they lost welfare, they lost hope in many cases. They didn't get all the benefits that they were talking about. The pensioners doubling it in 100 days. They had double old age pension in 100 days. They were going to do that. You check their manifesto. They had all these windfall that they were getting from fighting corruption. 40 billion, 50 billion. They established SARA. SARA didn't collect a cent. It spent more money than it collected. We can't have short memories. And so this is the approach. Our promises are sacred to us. We work every day to fulfill them. When we discuss at budget time, we say, what did we say to the people of this country? Because when we go back to them in 2025, we'd say, you judge us based on what we promise. We want you to look at us versus look at the other party. They made promises, they never fulfill them. We fulfill our promises and ask for people's vote on the basis of the work we've done and the promises we've kept. And more people are working today in this country and have a better chance at a prosperous future than they ever had any hope of doing under APNO. In fact, they can lead. So that is what we will do. It's not a election gimmick. I wish all parties were engaged in this gimmickry of fulfilling their promises. If all parties did that, it would be a competitive thing here. And then people would trust politicians more. So I see a big talk about, it's a gimmick because it's close to the elections. We didn't promise this now. When President Ali spoke about getting this done, it's not about now. It is, we promised this before the 2020 elections, and we're fulfilling it. So this is today's press conference again, and what I see in the media about all of these issues, about lowering inflation. We have one of the lowest inflation in the world because of our policies, because of what I explained last week. And I'm not going to repeat that because I did so last week, if you look at it, about how we manage directly to cushion. You just heard how we cushion. It costs us $75 billion only on foregone taxes to cushion the increase in diesel and gasoline prices. $75 billion. If we had not done that, people would have had to pay $75 billion more. So it works out to every time you go into the pump. So everybody would probably have to pay maybe $20,000, $30,000 more in gasoline purchases. They don't see it, but that's it. Subsidizing the cost for electricity and water costs us a lot too. The direct interventions to ensure to bolster disposable income by reducing the cost of input help too, because we're concerned about it. So they're concerned about it. They go to the market and say, oh, did the price of this thing increase? And if the price increase, fine, yeah, I understand that. But the context is, and the management. So they promise they will increase everything under the world, but zero inflation. You wouldn't have any price movement. That is happening. It's not believable. This is the sort of issue we face. So the last week, and I see they've all weighed in now, the entire APNU AFC, that the PPP has been targeting its critics. And last week's press conference, I said, we believe in a free society. We believe in free and fair elections. I went through that in great detail, and our history supports us on this. We've always struggled for freedom in this country. We believe in a free press. We're the victims of state policies to suppress the media in Guyana, when they denied importation of newsprint for the Mirror and newspapers in this country. APNU didn't want a rival news media in this country. So the Catholic Standard at that time and the Mirror and all of these newspapers that were there people had to smuggle in newsprint. They had to smuggle newsprint into this country. That is APNU's record on freedom of the press. We spoke of their record last week on free and fair elections. And that's well documented that they've always stolen elections. But people have not spoken about their record on free media. We know a bit about their disastrous economic record. But they were overall disaster. And almost everything that you could think of. So on media. So we have, last week I reinforced that we will defend the right of people to say what they and write what they wish, provided it is legal, and they don't weaponize it against the citizens of this country. They don't weaponize what they say or write against the citizens of the country, which is illegal. It doesn't fall under the rubric of free speech or free media. So let me reinforce that point again. Now, after last week, I left the press conference, and then Gordon Mosley and Travis Chase said, government intends to go after social media influencers. Jagdeo said this. Now, what I said there, I spoke in defense of free media and free speech. And I did not say we are going to go after social media influencers. There are thousands of people in social media who are performing a valuable task for society. They bring good information, credible information to people. They portray our country in a very flattering manner. They stimulate discussion around important topics. They lead social causes that are good for society. There are thousands of people out there in social media or social media influencers who do this job. And we should all support them. But when you listen to Mosley, or you read Mosley or Travis Chase, you would think that the government is intolerant to all of these people. What I made clear is that there are few people, very, very few, and they're known to everyone, who are spreading racism, promoting division in our society, and even using the media, social media, or their platforms to extort people. And the extortion part is a key part. I notice in all the portrayals of Burke, and whether the issue he was properly, the documents were properly filed or served, that there seemed to be a campaign to avoid commenting about his extortion. Now, Rickford Burke, there is a trial that will take place at a particular time in March next year at a court on East Coast, which involves several people trying to extort money from a businessman. So Rickford Burke and the others, they post something on their media site. Then the modus operandi is to call the people and say, I can expose you more. They would post, I have some information on you. And then they'd call them privately or get another group of people to call these businessmen and say, if you don't want me to publish all that I know of you, you have to pay money. That's extortion. It's a crime punishable by law in any part of the world. It's a criminal act. This is not free speech. It's not a social media influencer anymore. This is a criminal acting in a criminal capacity. So I've seen the media space given to a criminal to defend himself on extortion in many of the papers. The Morara Waves has about 30 editorials. I'm exaggerating a bit. But about 30 different views as to whether it is criminal for extortion. Maybe every criminal should get in Guyana, should get the same media space in Starbrook News and everywhere else to defend themselves. This a criminal that has nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with him being a critic of the government. Now they embrace him like that because they want to make the inconvenient go away, that this is a criminal who is trying to extort people. Now, as to service, they'll have all kinds of debate. I saw the new person who weighed in is some ex-magistrate, Kush, who didn't want to work a single day for this government when we assumed office. Well, you'd have those. And I've seen everyone weighed in from the opposition. They are complicit in a criminal act. APNU has sunk to a new low now. Formally, they have embraced a criminal who's extorting businessmen. This is not about free speech, because this country, free speech is alive and well. You just look at it every day. It's alive and well. In fact, people go beyond what would be considered normal in many other parts of the world. And you don't see them every day being hounded by the government. But this is a criminal. APNU, AFC, and its leaders, Roysdale Ford, Amanza Walton, Coretta MacDonald, all have embraced a criminal who is wanted for extortion. But you know what's good about this publicity? When it goes to the court in March, he can't say he doesn't know about the charges before him, because he's been speaking about those charges. And a court has to give a defendant the right to be heard. So the summons is to inform them of this case coming up, and your presence is required. So you can't say that he doesn't know that there will be a matter involving him. Rickford Burke, he's been doing all the wrongs on all the show. And you saw the video, he's a pathological liar. The man said people went with guns and run him down and all kind of thing. And he just ducking out the place all the time. Look at him meekly listening to the man, and the man said, "You've been served and recorded. You've been served and recorded." And he ran away, run down, jump in his vehicle, run off, and said he's going to church with his very friend, special friend, from what I gather. So you see him lying. Now he's saying the tape has been doctored. You can never win with these liars, but he knows now that there is a court case. He's wanted for extortion in Guyana. I see all of this as a defense, not of a critic of the PVP, but of a criminal who wanted. He would extort you too. So last week, I said what riled up a few of the others who've been bordering criminality too. Not ordinary influencers. People who have their dog club, they have a cat club, they're influencers everywhere who are talking. There's a free entry. It's the ones who are extorting people. They have to worry. And I said, in the past, they felt they are beyond the reach of the law. But you just file a case against them and have it served. And I saw even with Selwyn Peters, actually, when Selwyn Peters, under APNU, the Chronicle, and there was some guy from the UK, I forgot his name, they maligned him. And he went to the court in Canada, although it was a civil matter, and the court said, you can serve by email the person who is living in Canada, some Devonish or something like that, right? The one living in the UK, and the Chronicle in Guyana. By email, you can serve them. So the courts in Guyana, they have to satisfy themselves. The court, does Rickford Burke know that he has to be in court on charges of extortion in March? And the clear answer to any sane thinking person, it's not just about law, it's about common sense. That's law. Does he know that he has to appear to court? The answer is a clear yes. He's been on programs talking about it. So he knows now. This has nothing to do with going after social media influencers. Absolutely nothing. The ones who are getting worked up are the ones who've been assaulting people privately, trying to blackmail them, say all sorts of nasty things about them and their families, and then believe that they can, because they're out of Guyana, they have a protection abroad. Rickford Burke could go to the court in the U.S. to try to stop this. We relished the the people in the States presenting all of the evidence we have on the extortion. I'm sure the police would love to present that to a court in New York. He could file a case. I get that he is a lawyer. I think he might have failed law school about 10 times. So you're going to see him jump up now and do a live after that. After I leave here, he's going to run around and do a live like a headless chicken. So the thing is that they're scared. All of this big kind of antics you see going around, scared. I don't want to say the word, but I don't want to. There's a word that starts with S that follows scared. If you say that, they are running scared because people have a chance. Not the government, anybody who has been subjected to these assault by these people, they don't have a right. They have a right to free speech. They don't have a right to make people's lives miserable and to libel them. For me, I don't care too much what they say about me. Every day they cuss me, including Kite I get a prime place in the Kite news there for the cussing. This week I saw only 6 articles about me. I'm thankful for only 6 this week. And all of that.
The week isn't over.
Oh, the week isn't over yet. McCoy said the week is over. But it's ordinary people. And a government has to give people a chance to protect. The courts have to protect people too. Imagine you live here. You have to subject yourselves to the laws of the country. If you say something, a newspaper writes something here, or social media, you could be sued. Why should it be any different with those who live outside? They claim to be Guyanese, and now he's saying he gave up on Guyana, that he's no longer a citizen of Guyana, but every day. So I think I'd leave that. I just want to focus you back on some of the things that President Ali, in several of his speeches, I think it was the PSC dinner, and the O'Leary's their message, and a few other places, have outlined in great detail, if you have an opportunity to, a great detail of some of the initiatives we have worked on. He has given a progress report on where we are with a lot of the initiatives that we embarked upon in the early days of the administration, and has projected some even very specific policies, spoken about some very specific policies that we will be pursuing in the near future. Now, I could have today, I have a long list of them, because I could have gone through them, but I hope you will do so, because a lot of these will be reflected in the new budget. We're working in earnest to get the budget out early so we can continue the development program of the country, and so that we can fulfill the promises that we made to people. Thank you.
Honorable Representative.
Yes, Ken.
Can you give an update on the government's interest in an oil refinery? Where we did that? Secondly, is the approval for the Whiptail project earmarked for the first quarter? Thank you. I'll start again. Kiana Wilbur, Kaiser News. Can you give us an update on government's interest in an oil refinery? Secondly, is approval for the Whiptail project earmarked for the first quarter? Thirdly, ExxonMobil had said prepared a gas utilization study. Can you give us some insight on what were some of the options they proposed for Guyana? Did this study feed into our strategy? And can you say if government is interested in making Exxon's contribution public?
So Exxon can make its own contribution public. We will finalize the gas strategy and we will make that public. We will take into account the Exxon gas utilization strategy, but we're not going to be bound by that strategy. We could have differing interests, and I've outlined that from the beginning, and what those differences could be, even conflicting interests. Our strategy or goal is clear. We want to advance the investment in gas development as early as possible. And so clearly that has to be, we're going to put out the final government gas strategy. You can ask Exxon to if they want to put out their own strategy, all right? If they want to put out their own strategy. We will probably go out, as I said before, even before the completion of the strategy, because we know what the goal is, even before that, to test the market, because we're told that there are not many people right now who may be interested in funding because of the magnitude of the fund. We believe that based on bilateral contacts with us, people making specific proposals, etc., which we don't want to go through directly, that we should just test the market. Like we did, if you recall, the Wales development project. We had gone out for an RFP to see what people would want to potentially utilize the gas for, the excess gas, beyond the 50 million cubic per day utilized for the generation of power. Even on that issue now, the way we see the power demand in this country, even if we get a Milefall and the 300 megawatts and solar and some wind, we probably have to have another 300 megawatts, start planning it beyond that. Because the way the power demand is growing, it's in an exponential way. We'd have 11, 12 new hotels that all use about 2 to 3 megawatts of power, some massive new investments in many parts of the country. We believe once you cut the price of power by 2025 by 50%, you're going to see an explosion in usage. A lot more people will put in more. When the prices come down, the demand go up because people put in more air conditioning and other things in their homes. So we believe that we have to start even now planning a project beyond the current project that we are planning now. But that will be not implemented now, but put it in the planning equation as such, because we're looking for the outer term. So that will happen. On Whiptail, from what I gather, yes, but as I said before, specific dates on these matters, please confirm with the ministry. I don't track it like where they are. I know the assessment is being done by our external consultants. So I don't know, because sometimes they are moving targets and they require more information from Exxon and other partners as part of the assessment of their proposal for Whiptail. So I can't tell you on a daily basis where they are, because I don't track that. But I think that it's still on track so far for that, for the first quarter. The oil refinery, yes, we've been having discussions with a number of people who have expressed interest. So that group was narrowed down to about 5, and they included also the MOU from the DR, right? So the 5 included the DR group that was part of the MOU. But when you get to discuss more granular issues, you start experiencing some divergence from the parameters we established at the beginning. People want to change those parameters. They say we can't stick with those parameters. So if you change the parameters, you often change the nature of the project, and 2, then you're wondering whether it would be fair to the other people. So clearly the need for energy security is vital. And I told you, parallelly to that, we're exploring the possibility of strategic reserves. So that we're still in that process of exploring strategic reserves. So if you do have strategic reserves, it may kill the economic justification for having a refinery. But as I said before, I want to make sure that you understand all that the government is considering. So it's not like a project, something that we're just gonna do on a whim. We're looking at every option and all the studies, the numbers, etc. Because often it's the numbers that ultimately will influence the decision. These things have to be viable in the long run and good for our country in the long run. Because an investment of that nature is a 30, 40 years investment. So you got to think of it through carefully, and that the thoughtfulness is going into every one of these projects.
Thank you. 2 final questions from me. Reflecting on 2023, we have seen a lot of aggressive tactics from Venezuela, but can you say at this point, what has been the effects, if any, on the investment climate? Has there been any concerns communicated to you by potential investors? And how's the mood of the private sector where that's concerned?
I think initially there were fears. I had to assure a number of people, but these are not so much foreign investors. Not a single foreign investor called to express, at least at my level, and I've asked my colleagues to say, we're not coming to Ghana. If they had planned something to invest in Ghana, we're not coming because of the escalation of the tensions that we witnessed. A few local people who have access to me, they're, what do you think? Stuff like that, that sort of thing. They're worried. And so the assurances were given to them. I think those people are now they are reassured, but we have not seen any investment whatsoever, any kind of hesitancy on the part of any investor whatsoever because of this issue. Because of it, we haven't seen that. I think people are looking at Guyana in the long run. They know we have the international community on our side. They know that we are pursuing this border issue in a peaceful manner and through the appropriate channel, which is the ICJ. And therefore they're reassured by that too. And that we are not a lawless state, that we are a state that believes in international law. And in a way that is good for investors from abroad too, because it's when you have rogue states that act in a manner inconsistent with international law and global norms, then you also have to worry about capricious behavior on their part in relation to your investments. And therefore, our stance is reassuring to many of them because of these very consistent positions that we've taken that are aligned with the global community.
Thank you. Finally, for me, we're in the year or the eve of the election cycle. What can citizens look forward to as the main priorities that will be targeted for the oil and gas industry?
Okay, so clearly we, on the oil and gas side, we have done what we promise we will do so far. We made it clear, we've given explanations on some of the things that we will do, but not now, like we faced them. The Petroleum Commission, we said we're building capacity in the ministry. Now, in this period of the creation of the framework for managing, the framework for accountability in the sector, that you need swifter, more political action to pass, like the NRF, to pass the Petroleum Activities Bill, to pass, to get the new PSA. All of those things had to be driven politically to achieve them. A technical body would not have the same sense of urgency to do that. We promised that in the election, that's why we did those. Anybody who's assessing this sector in Ghana and come here in 2020 to now would have seen the massive changes in the tools available to the country to manage this sector. Environmental, technical, almost everything. There's been a sea change, evolution in the framework for managing this sector. Only the jaundice would not see that. So we hear from people, oh, you promise, maybe you go to the commission. You haven't done so as yet. But we gave an explanation as to why. But ultimately, the ultimate goal is a petroleum commission. If you look at other jurisdictions that have done this in some countries, not every country has that model, the commission. But countries have various models. But the countries that have done that have evolved into it when they have a mature environment and set of tools for managing the sector. So that will happen. That's something that we'd have to explain more to people. We'd have to explain that the oil and gas sector is a welcome addition, but that there are lots of dangers when you incorporate it into your economy and into your budgetary process, and you act as though the prices are going to be there forever, the revenue flow would be there forever, and that this sector has longevity given climate change. So it's hard to explain that to people in the context where they're here every day, oh, we have enough money to do everything now, you can stop working, you have all this oil money. And the fact of the matter is, right now, if you look at oil and gas revenue, it's a tiny sum. In the 2 years that we've brought in the money from the oil and gas sector, we only brought in $1.7 billion. In the future years, say by 2027 or so, you'd get $10 billion in a single year. That's why we're saying in the future years you would have more money coming in. But now you have to manage towards that. If we cut off and ring fence and stop any development, that future consistent high inflow will not be there. So we need to explain that to people. And that it's not, you grow into this, but you also have to be cautious about your expenditure. It's only when you have a fund of the magnitude, the NRF, that can generate annual income, like the Norwegian fund, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, has over $1 trillion. So if they invest $1 trillion now, they can live for a long time on the annuities, the annual flows from the fund. But it's only when you get to a magnitude that where it matters that you can start doing that. We're not there as yet. But it's very hard to explain this to people when you have a whole sideshow from the opposition, from Kaichur News, from many other places, saying, oh, they have all the money in the world now, we can do everything here. It's not true, and it's short-sighted. And so this obsession with the ring fencing, and now I see this whole thing about, oh, the NRF being overstated, and that it's legal. It's a storm in a teacup. It's a storm in a teacup. Not that a cent of the money is not with the government. Not that all the resources are with the government. It is how it gets into the consolidated fund we have a debate about now. How it gets into the consolidated fund. Not that the government is losing a cent or we're anything, but a big debate, clouding people's judgment, etc. And that sort of thing, it's this obsession over it every week, what interest rate is Exxon charging? Well, the thing is that we've explained already that the people, the co-investors, try to bring in equity as much as possible to the project. So because when they come in with equity, they will possibly get a higher return on the equity because it's a lucrative thing. So the local company doesn't have to go directly. They use their balance sheets, their strong balance sheets like Hess or Exxon or CNOOC to raise money. But the money comes into their balance sheet as a debt, and then it comes to the local company as equity. So if you explain that a million times and then it go right back to the start about these issues, so as though, ring fencing, another one. When we ring fencing, we made it clear it's the Stabroek agreement. We can't ring fence by project now. And we said why at this stage we want to ensure that we produce as much oil as quickly as possible. It may not suit everyone, and it does have a trade-off. We acknowledge that. The trade-off is potentially a little less revenue because they can't pay back. They would have paid back earlier for the project, so potentially some additional revenue versus a long-term bigger production with the potential of massive windfalls for the next set of Guyanese. We can't live for today. We also have to live for the future, for 3 years down the line, and save enough to our children and their families, and everybody could live with a good life, a real good life for 50, 60 years into the future. And that's what we are building now. That when this generation gets older, that they can also get in, they can live in decency and retire in decency. You can't live for the moment. And that is what APNO does. So explaining these things to people, it's hard politically. You ask me what we're going to tell people, oil and gas, wise. It's hard because you can't do this on a platform. They only hear every day, government giving up in taxes, billions, etc. I went through that tax thing again about you can't get investments. It's like reinventing, we're flipping, people are flipping the blocks and making money. But globally, there are mergers and acquisitions. Every year, people flip. It's a normal thing, provided they pay their taxes if they have capital gains, etc. It's a normal thing. Some people reinvent the wheel and a new headline every day, every week. And you almost have to, for some people, they get misled by it, by the sheer preponderance of it. Every week, the same thing. So you got to keep at this all the time. So some of this is what we need to do, but it's hard to do it in a political context. Because when you go on a public meeting, people are more concerned about sometimes, the drain, if it's clean, or the road, when you're building the road. They don't want to hear this, but they hear it all the time, like from the distance, the government not doing a good job, etc. But it's not true.
Trina Williams, Canada Chronicle.
Yes.
IPADG has indicated that the president has not responded to their request for a meeting. Does the government, given the open misrepresentation by persons at the helm of the body, does the government believe that a meeting would be effective at this time?
I can't speak about the president's time. So if the president wants to meet IPADG, he will meet them. And for me personally, I don't see any benefit in doing it. But the president, maybe he wants to meet with them. But personally, the volume came on, yeah. So, and why do I say that? Because it's these same individuals who, you recall, when they were promoting, that we are promoting some of the same individuals from one of the most prominent organizations, or prominent of the few entities that make up the IPADG, the assembly, Coffee 250. They were the ones who were saying that we are promoting apartheid in Guyana. When people use that extremist sort of language, where is the middle ground? Because I went to South Africa. Many of them didn't go to South Africa. I went to Soweto. I went to many other places. They don't know what apartheid is. And if they say that sort of thing, what conversation could you have with people? But I guess you can talk to anyone in this country too. And you should ask President Ali whether he's met with them.
Dr. Jagdeo, Kurt Campbell, Newsroom. I just wanted to ask, what is the government's reaction or even response to Dr. Gonzalez's explanation after he appeared in the photograph with the Venezuelan map that included Guyana and Essequibo? And secondly, you had promised an early budget in December. I just wanted to follow up today to ask if we could expect the presentation in January or February.
January. And the president released a letter on his page that Ralph sent to him. Have you seen the letter?
I have, yes.
Okay, well, I think that gives all. I don't want to comment on it because we spoke with Ralph yesterday. I think he mentioned that in the letter, and as he pointed out in the letter, he said that he was at this function and it predated the
It was December 2020.
22, yeah,
just
so
wanted
it
to
was
get
December,
the
and he was saying that he did not pay attention to what was placed in front of him. He held this, and this happens a lot with politicians too. Sometimes, one time, let me give you an example. I went to the races, and somebody won one of the races, a motorcycle event. And so I took a picture with him. And then the police said to me, that's one of the biggest drug dealers in the country. I'm not going to mention. so I didn't even know the man. So I guess what Ralph said, he didn't know I was there in front of him. And it's a credible explanation. I don't think that Ralph Gonzalez would knowingly pose for a picture with a Venezuelan map that shows Essequibo as part of Venezuela. Ralph and every other Caribbean leader has, they have expressed strong solidarity with Guyana, and you've seen the statements that they've issued in terms of our territorial integrity and sovereignty.
Jagdeo, and also you, yes. Just two quick questions. Firstly, can you state what is going to become of the non-functional new Skeldon sugar factory that was built? And do you consider this to be, quote-unquote, an industrial white elephant? And secondly, there are concerns in some sections of society that due to your government's reluctant to do the following, basically renegotiate the contract, copy interest rates, put independent meters at the pump, and implement ring-fencing provisions, and also
ring-fencing interest rates, etc. Again.
And also
oh.
demand for
who is sending you these things? Who is sending? Is Glenlan sending that to you? Is Glenlan sending that to you or gave it to you down there? I got interesting, since Glenlan wants to know about the Skeldon factory. I found an interesting thing, about him. Very interesting. I don't think I brought it here. I'll give you something here. Very interesting. If you want to check it, it's the Wednesday, February 2nd, 1994. It says France was shot by accident. Glenn Mohanlal, the vigilante who shot and killed Kenny France at Macdoom more than a week ago, has told the police that this was an unfortunate accident. Since he wants to know about Skeldon, we should see the Starbuck News front page, February 2nd, 1994. And I can read a lot about they were worried that it's a cover-up and everything else. Shot and kill
What
people.
are you trying to say, Dr. Jagdeo?
No. You're not. The young lady is on. You get a chance to ask me.
Oh.
So yes. So Skeldon factory. The thing is that the entire sugar industry, we have a strategy for it. The president mentioned it in his New Year's address. You will hear more about it at the budget time. At budget time, president mentioned that. On the other issues of ring fencing and all of that, I'm not going to respond to that. I think I did already earlier when in my explanations about an incessant, the same sort of thing over and over again. But since Glenn Lal is like his newspaper can put me 5 times a week, 6 times a week. I thought I'd just give him a little taste, like him make the news for once on a matter where a person was shot and killed by Mr. Lal in 1994 in very suspicious circumstances. I wonder if he will, since he's the media man and he's committed to truth, will he address this matter for the country too? And there are lots more I can find. I'm just starting with this one this week, so I think I should just give a little, you know, let me tell you something. If you tackle me, I'm a fighter too, so I will. He is cussing me every week in the newspapers. I will give you some stories about him once a week maybe, or once every month. I'll find some stories. Since we're wasted time and we sell out to ExxonMobil and all sorts of things in the world, let him answer a couple of things. So I could ask the question, are you working for a killer? No, but I'm not asking, I withdraw that question. So these are quite legitimate questions, like the same way. Oh, I saw you got another one there. Give her back. She just got a text that came in.
I'm asking my notes.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Well, then I thought you wanted back. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Luan Williams, DBI. Vice President, back in July, you spoke about how buyers were interested in Guyana's carbon credit, and the government was exploring those opportunities. Can we expect to see any agreements this year relating to Guyana's carbon credit?
Yeah, we're hoping that we can move forward to another sale, but the conditions would have to be favorable. There is no urgency, there is no pressing, like no pressure on us to do so, so that we're in a comfortable position to explore the markets that way, because we have a strong product. We're fortified by a solid agreement that defied market expectations, and now we have a few people with interest. The problem with the market, though, is because of what happened at COP. The market softened a bit because of COP, but we believe that through similar bilateral deals, similar to the one that we did with Hess, we'd be able to advance the sale.
Secondly, you also spoke about how the government was exploring options for vendors, especially Pleasance and others along the East Coast Demerara. Did the government made any progress on that?
I hope that because Edge Hill and Indar, and let me say this publicly, they made a commitment. I went to Plaisance just after the local government elections. They gave the people notice to move in 7 days, the market. It was unreasonable. It came from an engineer. It was unreasonable because the 4-lane road that we've awarded was not going to start in Plaisance at that time. And therefore, we did not need to do that. We had an engagement. I've asked Minister Indar and Edge Hill to meet with people who are on the railway embankment from Georgetown all the way to, I think it's Orange Nassau, even to Mahaica, because it's going all the way to Mahaica. But mainly to Orange Nassau, Beehive, Clombrook area, because you had people there who were farming and some were like had a cattle, etc. on the embankment that we need to discuss with them and help them. That is the approach we wanted to take, because we have to build a 4-lane road, but we also try to accommodate people. I hope that process is ongoing. I've not followed it up, but I expect it to be done in that manner, that we work with people. And most people at Plaisance and wherever I've gone, I had a discussion with college and area, and Melanie area too with people. And people understand it because they want the 4-lane road too. Their properties go up. Like like a lot of people say, 6.5%. And a public servant earning maybe, getting 6.5% might give them maybe $50,000 or $60,000 more a year. It's not a lot of money. But the value of that one person said to me, I just got a piece of land and I paid X amount of money and now the land value is like $20 million. That public servant would work for nearly maybe 15 years to earn $20 million, but they got a piece of land now that the net increase in a year or two is now $20 million. So it is the focus on asset value. They may not get a larger percent increase, but now I own assets that are equivalent to 15 times more than my annual income. People have to think about asset ownership and growth in asset, total asset. So that's why when people think we must do only one thing, every time we put in a road in front of people's property, the property value go up. When people get a plot of land, it means they have accumulated more assets. So they don't have the cash, but they now have more assets. They're building up assets, part of the process of getting wealthier. And so people have to put that into the approach to life totally, and their analysis, in their analysis. Yes.
Jagdeo, I think I took quite finish my second question.
Oh, okay, all right. You didn't finish it as yet? All right.
No, I didn't finish. Those things I listed were just to put some context.
Oh, you had to put the context. Okay, all right, go with the context now. The context is, but the context is the same question, so no matter what context you put. Glenn Lal giving you to ask me the same questions every week. It's the context.
So the concerns are
whether yourself or some members of your government have either a financial interest in ExxonMobil or have shares, and I would like to have your response to the society.
So I respond to the society and to you too. So I don't own any shares in Exxon or any other oil company, and I do not think that any minister in this government or the president own any shares. But if they do, they will, because we believe in the rule of law, that those will have to be declared to the Integrity Commission. APNU, you recall, had 3 years gap in when they did not declare their income and assets. So the question you may want to pose, now that I've given you the answer, no, I don't have any pecuniary interest, not just shares, any pecuniary interest whatsoever, financial interest in that. The question you may want to ask now was, did any minister or any member or general secretary of a particular political party have any pecuniary interest in Exxon when the agreement was negotiated? Did they own any share? And whether those shares were not declared to the Integrity Commission but sold off before the APNU started declaring the statements of income and asset in the first 3 years. Because from what I gather, not just on this matter, I don't know much about this matter, but I know that a lot of flipping took place in the 3 years when they did not have to set a baseline to the period when they had to start declaring income the first 3 years. You may wish to ask, go to the PNC press conference and ask Mr. Norton if he could find out whether that was the case. But I can almost say to you that 99% sure that nobody in this government owns any share, but if they do, and they have to declare it to the Integrity Commission, and if they didn't, then they can go to jail. They can go to jail because that's what it says. They will be falsifying the information. I know for sure that the president doesn't own any share, Mark Phillips doesn't own any share, I don't own any share, Vikram Bharat doesn't own any share, so Ashni Singh doesn't own any share. Kwame McCoy, what about you? I don't know. Kwame, yes, Kwame doesn't own any shares. So we don't own any shares. Does Glenn Land own any shares? Or any of his close associates? Like the one who was building the fake wharf and tried to falsify the what they call it, the geotechnical, and the companies found out and then didn't rent his place, and he became enraged and he joined Glenn Land. Do they have any pecuniary interest? Did the Kaichonus ever approach ExxonMobil to say that they can give them favorable coverage for ads? If they get ads and a number of resources from Exxon, they would get favorable coverage? Since you're asking questions, I think I might be free to. I don't see Glenn Land a lot, so I'd have to ask through the press conference. Please convey these to him. Maybe the next press conference I get to. Right, okay, next one. Next press conference. Yes.
I had a question.
Yes, sure, yeah.
Thank you. Just to return to your opening statement, you mentioned quite a bit about what the opposition
But this is not, look at the vessel. If you go online and you Google the HMS Strength, see what the capabilities are. This is by no standard a warship. When you say warship, it connotates a different kind of aggression. This is a patrol vessel that has come to the region before. It was scheduled to do an exercise in Barbados and come to Guyana. And it did so. And they made it clear, we made it clear it had no aggressive intent against Venezuela. But we also have to work with our allies. There are lots of things we need to know and to do. We need to make sure that our waters are safe from incursion into our exclusive economic zone by a number of players, non-state players, including illegal fishing and drug dealers. And part of the mission of this was this vessel was to look at that, help us in this regard, and in Barbados too. But we don't have apology to make for building and for relationship with our allies in a defensive capacity. We didn't do so in an aggressive manner to say, that's why I said we have no aggressive intent against Venezuela. We're not an aggressive state here. So I was surprised a bit about that. Yes, Dennis.
Mr. Jagdeo, in some quarters, there was a bit of a surprise, if not disappointment, that Mr. Darren Kamarsi-Reg was not appointed local minister. Why was he not, and what influenced the decision to go with Ms. BHARRAT instead?
So I'm surprised which quarters? APNU?
Was it your party?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. The president makes this decision on ministerial appointment. And the president thought that Sonia Parra can discharge this responsibility adequately and competently, and he made the decision. People should laud us for not appointing a new minister, but for reassigning a portfolio to an existing minister. They were complaining that under APNU you had too many ministers, and they took a big increase and stuff. Here, you have a government is being criticized now for not appointing a new minister when the portfolio could be held by an existing minister. You're saving the country all of the benefits, which run into millions of dollars, for appointing a new minister. They should be happy with this, happy with President Ali's decision. I don't know which quarters, but I'm the General Secretary of the PPP, and I don't have any concern over the President's decision on this matter. In fact, I think it's laudable that you could discharge the same functions without having to appoint a new minister.
Did the party influence the decision?
No. What do you mean the party influenced the decision? Not to appoint or to appoint or so? But I don't want to give wings or lend wings to a rumor or maybe somebody who has a vested interest, because it's not a big issue for the PPP or the government. So you can just, it could be lending wings to a rumor. We're very happy with the president's decision, and we believe the minister is a very, very competent minister who can work with Anand Basadir, who is another minister, to discharge the functions of the ministry. And it saves the country millions of dollars by doing so and not appointing a new minister. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, you want to see it? I give you the date, right?